And we are live. You already know who it is. My name is Mike Kyle, aka the Fantasy Vulture. I have over a decade worth of fantasy football experience and have continuously competed for fantasy championships over the course of the past 6 seasons. Let's make it 7 in 2020. 2021, Happy New Year. But enough of me. I'm here for you. On today's episode of the FB Show, we are going to have our final weekly preview episode, breaking down all of the Week 17 actions through the lens of fantasy football. One of the most hardest weeks on the season to try and predict, but I think I have some good insights for you today. If you could, hit that like button down below like an open receiver downfield to show your support for this video. Smash that subscribe button so you're never missing an upload from me. You can also follow me on all social media platforms at FFVulture. And when I tell you that I spent 3 hours the other night brainstorming and preparing content ideas for 2021, honestly, it's a little bit longer than 3 hours. It was pretty much all night. I'm really excited for what I got coming down the pipe throughout the offseason for fantasy, because as many of you guys know, the offseason is when you win your championship. Not in season, the offseason. You got to get the insights, you got to get ahead of the curve on a lot of different players, teams, analysis, stats, and info, and I'm here to bring it all to you. But before we go any further with our Week 17 preview, this video is sponsored by Thrive Fantasy. Come prop up with Thrive this season. Users who enter the code VULTURE during their first deposit will get it matched, minimum $20, maximum $50. And it's just a real great time over there on Thrive Fantasy. If you guys have been following along on my Twitter, you guys know that I have been on this app like a madman. I'm also winning like a madman. We had back-to-back plus weeks. I'm currently up, I think, like 50 right now. So I love that. Come prop up on Thrive this season. Thrive Fantasy is a daily fantasy sports app specifically for player props. They've eliminated the need to do countless hours of research because they only ask you about the top tier athletes in any given sport. But between the NFL, MLB, NBA, PGA, and even esports, they have a sport for you. We're going to be running a lot of different things over here on the channel specifically for the playoffs. I told them I would dish out some content for them, so I'm really excited about that. Again, use the promo code VULTURE, minimum $20 deposit. They're going to match it for you up to $50, and just come compete against me. I'm going to be tweeting out what contests I'm doing over the course of the weekend for Week 17, the playoffs, and beyond. Probably going to dabble in some NBA action too. So just come compete against me. It's a real great time, and shout out to Thrive for sponsoring this video. All right, let's get right into it. I'm ready to roll. Here's what we need to talk about first. I want to talk about Week 17. What Week 17 is for fantasy. I am still one of those people who unfortunately play in a Week 17 championship. I don't like it per se. I also don't hate it either. It's another week of fantasy, which I love, but the circumstances around Week 17 are really challenging. You guys already know if teams already clinch a bye, or if they already clinch a playoff spot or a bye, whatever the case, they're going to rest their players. If they aren't playing for anything, they may even rest some players. We've seen that throughout the course of this news week as well. So there's a lot to get into. And really my Week 17 philosophy, I want to dive into this real quick. It's a game of what do you need. If you're playing in a Week 17 championship, more often than not, it's because you are in a 2-week playoff format. And what that means is that it's a rollover from last week. So you're going to go into this week either up 10, down 10, up 30, down 30, whatever the case may be. And so how you play your lineup in Week 17 is very dependent upon how your Week 16 went, in my opinion. Do you go for the upside play? Do you make safety and floor plays? Do you do a mix of the two? It is team dependent, and to me, the message that really sums up Week 17 is how can you manage risk, right? Because you're going to be faced with players who may only play a half, and is starting a player who's only going to play 24 minutes maybe, right? Is that going to be enough compared to a guy who can play the full 60? You know what I'm saying? So these are all things you have to think about when you're setting your Week 17 lineup. Luckily for us. I say luckily, but even though I was going through like the lists here, and like there's a handful of players not playing this week, but I really am surprised at the majority who are. And I think it's with the addition of this season and how just blow for blow it's been, for lack of a better term. I mean, you look at the AFC, we got 5 teams competing for playoff spots this week. Seeding's all up in the air over on the NFC. And with that in mind, we aren't seeing a whole lot of stars being rested, but at the same time, there are some big blows for fantasy. So let's just dive right in and let's get crack-a-lackin'. We're going to start off with the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to go through playoff scenarios for each team, so that way you kind of get an understanding of if players might get pulled early, are they going to play the full game, and things of that nature, just to give you guys an idea of the stakes within each game. So for the playoffs, if Miami wins this game, they are in. Win and in. Simple as that. If Buffalo wins, they are the number 2 seed. Buffalo, I believe, is also the number 2 seed if Pittsburgh loses to Cleveland this week. So that's also something to consider. This game is a 1 o'clock kickoff, and I believe the Browns game is as well. So Josh Allen should be playing a full game here if Buffalo decides they want to go for that number 2 seed. Injuries here, Ryan Fitzpatrick is out due to COVID. Big blow for Miami, who just kind of has a tendency, as Brian Flores said, to use Ryan Fitzpatrick as this relief pitcher for Tua if Tua gets in a slump. So if that happens in this game, they don't have that safety valve. And then Devontae Parker is questionable with a hamstring injury. I'm going to slide the iPad over. I'm going to slide this in front of me. There we go. Cool. Also, for this game, for Buffalo, Cole Beasley is out with that knee injury that he suffered in Monday night's game. John Brown is activated off of the COVID list after being on IR. What a strange day. What a strange Monday that was for John Brown, coming off the IR, then automatically being put on the COVID list. Big blow for him, but he's back and active this week. Start sits for this game. Let's dive right in. For Miami, Myles Gaskin needs to be in your lineup. He's been a locked and loaded stud all season long. You aren't going to pivot away from that now, especially with the lack of options, right? So Myles Gaskin and Mike Gesicki, I just think one of the things that we've seen from Tua is his tendency to throw to the tight end in the red zone specifically. Mike Gesicki, athlete, one of Tua's favorite targets so far, and you're just going to kind of roll with Gesicki in this matchup for that reason. On the other side, for Buffalo, we're going to keep it rolling the same way that we always have. Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. And my rationale behind this is simply Josh Allen can get it done in 30 minutes. If you just give Josh Allen a half, he can have 200, 250 yards, 2 or 3 touchdowns even. So he has a talent and the ability to put up points quickly in a half. And with Stephon Diggs, we saw it last week, but even at a greater scale, it only takes one play for him. All he needs is one play. He can then take a 50 or 60-yard pass to the house, and that's going to be good enough for your fantasy day. You're going to start Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, I think, with confidence in this matchup. Our next game is going to be the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. Baltimore is also in a win and in scenario, and the Bengals have been eliminated from playoff contention. Injuries for this game consist of Gus Edwards of the Ravens being questionable with a back injury, and Joe Mixon has officially been ruled out with that ankle. The wide receivers, Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. Higgins had a hamstring injury, I believe, and then Tyler Boyd coming back from that concussion that he missed last week's game from. They're both up and active here. I want to spend a moment and talk about Joe Mixon real quick, and I actually want to talk about Zach Taylor more than anybody else, head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. Zach Taylor is in the Sean McVay, the Pete Carroll, the Bruce Arians bubble of if guys are injured and they tell you they might come back, you can't take that for face value whatsoever. We saw this last year with AJ Green. Zach Taylor was saying, oh, he's coming back. Oh, he's making progress. We expect him back this week. We expect him back next week. And we waited and waited and waited. And AJ Green never saw the field all season long. Joe Mixon, literally 6 weeks ago, he'll be back next week after the bye. Another week passes. A third week. A fourth. And here we are now. Joe Mixon shut down for the year. It was expected as soon as kind of the Joe Burrow injury happened that, hey, they might as well just rest Joe Mixon. They signed him to a long-term contract this offseason, I guess just before the season. and there's no real need to put that mileage on your star running back, so I get it. Just kind of sucks for the people who are holding out hope for Mixon to make his return. Start sits here. We have, for Baltimore, Lamar, J.K., Mark Andrews, and Hollywood Brown. It's time. The resurgence has happened. I want to pull up the stats just so I make sure that I get my numbers right. But here's what you need to know. Hollywood Brown has been on an absolute tear over the course of the past 5 weeks. I mean, you're looking at double-digit fantasy points in 5 straight. He's gotten in the end zone in 4 out of 5 games. The yardage has been there, 85 and 98 yards respectively. Also had a 50-yard game in there as well. And so have the targets. I think that's actually a really important factor here too, because one of the things that was missing for Hollywood earlier this year was the targets just weren't there. He was consistently getting 3 to 4 targets a game. And with a guy like Hollywood, who does have that big play ability, just getting him more involved and making him an integrated part in the offense is huge for him, right? Because he is just a second-year player in this league. So 8 targets, 6, 7. That's the numbers that we like to see. And honestly, truthfully, the Ravens' offense has been rolling since they got Hollywood Brown back involved. Does one lead to the other? I don't know, but I do know that fantasy and the NFL is much more fun when the Ravens offense is this high-powered machine that we saw last year. They got away from it early on, and they are back to it down the stretch. They're one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now. For Cincy, honestly, I'm not excited to start anybody. Last week versus Houston was the exception for me, where I was saying you need to start Gio Bernard, you need to start T. Higgins if you can. Both those guys came through. We saw Samaje Perine just run through the Texans, right? And it was strictly matchup dependent, right? I'm not going to trust this Bengals team against the hungry Baltimore Ravens, Baltimore Ravens organization, where this team is desperate for a win and to keep their postseason hopes alive. I think the Bengals get absolutely slashed in this game. I have no interest in starting anybody, especially with some of the waiver wire options who are available because of all the missing players this week. Let's go to our next game here, and that is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Cleveland Browns. Playoff scenarios for this team. My eye is going crazy right now. I apologize. My contact is all messed up. Playoff scenarios for this game. Pittsburgh, with the win, they are the number 2 seed, and Cleveland is a win and in situation. It's already been reported that Ben Roethlisberger is not playing in this game due to rest. He also has a bit of a knee injury that Pittsburgh's been trying to keep under wraps. It sounds like it's been a hyperextension of that knee from a few weeks ago, so we know Big Ben's a guy who's going to try and play through whatever he can, and has done so mildly successfully, right? This team definitely hit a wall, but still just being able to gut it out and play at some sort of level, like average level, I'll say. Always impressive just what these athletes can do. Other Pittsburgh starters are also out. I know TJ Watt is one of them. Cameron Hayward's another. But Mike Tomlin didn't really indicate who else, and that's really concerning for fantasy purposes. I'll talk about that in just a second. So Mason Rudolph is going to start in place of Ben Roethlisberger, and then for the Browns, they get all their wide receivers back off the COVID list, and they have no other injuries of note on the offensive side of the ball. All right, start sets here for Pittsburgh. I'm not excited to start anybody. I don't believe in Mason Rudolph. I don't believe he's a good quarterback. And with the thought of, hey, maybe they pull Juju, Deontay, Claypool for a half, a quarter, maybe it's just a one-series thing, get him in, get him out. I'm not excited to start anybody here, especially with the way that this offense has been playing as of late. The running backs, I'm not interested. The Pittsburgh Steelers, it sucks because these are guys who pretty much got you, who have the ability, should I say, to have big games, and we've seen big games from each of these players all season long. To not be able to have that in your lineup really is a big blow for a few fantasy teams for sure. On the other side for Cleveland, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Jarvis Landry in your lineup, locked in, loaded, ready to go. The Browns are favored in this game by 9.5 points, which I don't remember the last time the Browns were favored by that much. So this should be a Nick Chubb game. Kareem Hunt should be involved as well. Just we know that the Browns use that 1-2 attack, and Jarvis Landry has been playing out of his goddamn mind over the course of the past several weeks. Baker's favorite target. I was preaching this all offseason long. Finally came through for me. And I'm really excited about Landry in this matchup, to be honest. I think that Baker actually has a really great game, and the Browns make the postseason for the first time since 2007, I believe. Up next, we have the Minnesota Vikings and the Detroit Lions. This game's chaos. This game is complete and utter chaos. There are 0 playoff implications involved. Injuries, people missing this game include Dalvin Cook, who is out, unfortunately, due to the passing of his father. It was just a random thing that, oh, hey, Dalvin Cook not playing this week. And what a bomb that is for Week 17ers who have Dalvin Cook. Full disclosure, I was supposed to be facing Dalvin Cook this week. I'm currently down 28. I need a miracle. And I hate that I got my miracle this way. It sucks, like, losing a family member, let alone your father. Like, no, like, why? Like, why is that the way that my comeback has to start, right? So that just blows for him. And I have already decided if I do make this comeback, I will be donating. I'll be donating some coin to whatever charities I can find that Dalvin Cook supports. Just a really random situation and just really encapsulates what 2020 was, right? I mean, this did happen in 2020, so we're going to count it. So, well, like, I don't know. Just really uncomfortable. Like, what a stupidly uncomfortable way to win, potentially, right? So, Dalvin Cook is out for Detroit. Kenny Galladay is out officially with that hip injury. We knew that. That really wasn't anything overly newsworthy, surprising, shocking, right? Matt Stafford is questionable, which I can't fucking believe this is even a thing. Matt Stafford didn't practice earlier in the week and then was a limited participant all the way throughout Friday. Questionable with a rib, ankle, and thumb injury. I don't know why they're going to play Stafford if they do, but it just speaks again to my take that Matt Stafford is the most tough player in the NFL. So start sits here for this game. We're bringing it out. Yo, start everybody for Minnesota. I'm looking at Kirk Cousins. I'm looking at Alexander Mattison replacing Dalvin Cook. Justin Jefferson, Thielen never to leave your lineup. Irv Smith has been on fire as of late. And really just looking at what Detroit has done defensively this season, which I've talked about at length, just how bad they are. But I really just want to go through the numbers here against running back specifically, right? If you lost Dalvin Cook, hopefully you were able to scoop up Alexander Mattison, or you at least had him as a handcuff. But just kind of read you some numbers here at the points given up to the running back position: 52, 38, 23, 40, 52, 30, 23, 35, 20. I mean, this team just can't stop the run to save their goddamn lives. And I can't believe I'm saying this. I think I'm benching Alexander Mattison. The reason why I have him is because I picked him up to play keep away from my opponent. And I played keep away quite a bit this week. Knowing that my opponent has Cam Akers, knowing my opponent had Dalvin, there was a window for me to kind of play keep away here. So I literally picked up this week. I picked up Alexander Mattison. I picked up Boston Scott. I picked up Latavius Murray. And just things are rolling right now in a very, very nice direction for me. All right, going over to the Lions side here. Where did my thing? There we go. So going over to the Lions side here, DeAndre Swift should be in your lineup. I don't imagine you have the running back depth that I do, but if you do, shout out to you, Chef Kiss. As I always say, running backs win you championships. So DeAndre Swift should be in your lineup. This is a very good matchup against the Vikings, so I like him here. If Stafford plays, and this really is the big question mark for me, is will he play, will he not? If Stafford plays, Hawkinson and Marvin Jones should be in your lineup because just how bad the Lions defense is, is almost as bad as the Vikings, excuse me. We know that the Vikings defense has been bleeding points all season long from any position, doesn't matter who, and I think that should continue against Detroit this week. Moving on, the game that I really don't want to talk about, but we have to cover because it's part of fantasy, it's the Jets and the Patriots. There are no playoff implications for this game. Frank Gore and Michael Pirine are both out for the Jets, and Damian Harris is out with that ankle injury yet again. Start sits for this game. LOL, you are not putting your championship aspirations, your hopes, your dreams into these two teams. There's not a chance in hell. No. You don't think about Perriman, Crowder, maybe Crowder. I'll say Crowder. I will give you Jamison Crowder if you have to. I would prefer other options. I can probably list 20 options off the top of my head who I would rather start over him. But again, maybe you lost Tyreek, maybe you lost Keenan Allen, and you have to start Jamison Crowder. Go ahead. Other than that, I ain't touching a fucking soul in this game. Next, Dallas and the Giants. Playoff scenarios for this game. Both teams need to win, and they need Washington to lose the nightcap versus Philadelphia in order to become NFC East champs. What a stupid thing to say for this division. Injuries in this game, there are none. I think this is actually the only game this week where there are no injuries for either team. Start sit. Golden Tate's not playing, but is Golden Tate actually relevant for fantasy? No. What is Golden? I'm very curious to know what wide receiver Golden Tate is on the year. Can I go to stats? Let's go to season. Tate. Golden Tate is wide receiver 85 on the year right now. 2 touchdowns, whole lot of nothing. All right. Anyways, as I was saying, no injuries here for either team. Start sits. Zeke should be in your lineup. I think you roll with it. Tony Pollard's been better as of late, but if you got this far with Zeke, I don't know how you sit him in a matchup like this. The Giants defense, as I've said, has been better than I think we all expected them to be, but I just think you trust the talent of Zeke here. And with these Cowboys wide receivers, this is where things get interesting for me. Amari Cooper traditionally shuts down when he's facing cornerbacks of elite status, and that is James Bradberry, who was elected to the Pro Bowl in his first season with the Giants after coming over for Carolina. I've talked about Bradberry all season long. So with that being said, I like CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup more than Amari Cooper, but Amari Cooper being the number one means that you pretty much have to play him in your lineup. I just see avenues for those other two guys to have a more successful day against this Giants defense. I also trust the quarterback play of Andy Dalton more than I do Daniel Jones just in this matchup in a vacuum, right? So here, I like Gallup and I like CeeDee. I just don't know if you'd ever bench Amari Cooper in a game like this, right? I'm very curious actually because I don't know off the top of my head. What did Amari Cooper do in his first matchup against Giants? Yeah, so he played 64% of snaps, 2 targets. This was the home game, yeah, because this was the game that Dak died. So Amari Cooper in the game that Dak died, 4 targets, 2 receptions, 23 total yards. Shadowed by Bradberry all game long. You like that is in the realm of possibilities. It's just something to consider. Kind of explore your options, look to see who you have. Do you have a confident pivot? I will say this. One of the things that I think is really interesting about Week 17 specifically is sometimes you have to make the uncomfortable play. For example, I'm not playing Antonio Gibson this week, and then Gibson's been a guy, and DeAndre Swift for that matter. I'm not playing either of them. And those have been 2 guys who I pretty much relied on down the stretch, and Gibson, honestly, throughout the majority of the season. But when I have a better option like a Latavius Murray or an Alexander Madison, you have to, sometimes you just have to roll with that. It's one of those things where, as loyal as I am to the players who got me there, Sometimes you just have to make that. You just have to make that jump. I remember last year when I won my title, I started Rashad Perriman, Deebo Samuel, and Raheem Mostert in my championship. That was week 17. I had Mostert throughout the majority of the back half of the season, but I literally picked up Deebo Samuel. I picked up Rashad Perriman like for that matchup specifically. And it's weird. It's weird sitting guys that got you to the point, that got you to this point, but you have to make the best decision in order to help you fulfill your goals and win that fantasy championship. And then for the Giants here, I'll wrap up with this. Really not interested in anybody. Wayne Gallman's fallen off a cliff after his hot start, and there's not really a Giants wide receiver who I'm confident enough to start in a championship. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I just think that there are other options available instead. Let's go to our next game, which is going to be the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Playoff scenarios for this game. The Bucs are simply just playing for seeding, which is really weird. I don't love it. Because it makes things a bit complicated of how much are they actually going to play their starters. More on that in just a second. And then for the Falcons, there are no playoff implications here because they have been eliminated. Injuries, Julio Jones is out with that hamstring injury. I mean, this was declared like Monday that he was not going to play. And for the Bucs, none. Ronald Jones is back off the COVID list, back from that broken finger, and he should be ready to roll for this game. Start sit. Calvin Ridley doesn't leave your fucking lineup. And I think what's actually really funny now that I'm thinking about this, we started off all season saying start everybody for the Falcons, and now we're down to the point where we're literally only starting Calvin Ridley. That is fucking crazy to me. It's just how this offense has kind of crumbled in a way. For Tampa, can you trust Bruce Arians to play their guys for a full game? I don't know. We saw this last week with Detroit. This game got out of hand early, and we saw our guys only play a half. As somebody who had Leonard Fournette, who was in line for a big game, congrats, you got your 12, 13 points, but it came in one half, and you might have needed more. And to me, personally, that was really frustrating. Tom Brady had 30 points, but was pulled at half. You know, it was a game of circumstance, so I get that one. But understanding that Arians, as I kind of alluded to with Zach Taylor, likes to play games, likes to play some mind games here. And I don't know if I can trust Arians to play a full game. To me, outside of Calvin Ridley and looking solely at Tampa Bay, it all depends on what your options are. I don't prefer to play anybody on the Bucs. For example, I'm sitting Ronald Jones and Antonio Brown this week. And it just comes down to options. Now, if you were like me and you heard me out when all year long and all offseason I was saying depth, you should be in a position where you don't have to play a member of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But if you got to roll that dice, I don't want to pull it up, but we're going to. Like, this offense is just too good. It's what we've been saying all year long. Brady can get it done in a half. This is an offense, as we just saw last week, actually. Fuck it, let's go back to last week. As we saw last week, this is an offense that only needs 30 minutes of football to hang 45 on you. And that's it. So, with that in mind, if you have to start a member of the Buccaneers, I pray for you. I really, really do. But it's not something I'm overly excited about, because I don't know what kind of mind games that Bruce Arians is going to play this week. Where did my thing? There we go. Our next game is going to be the New Orleans Saints taking on the Carolina Panthers. Playoff scenarios for this game. The Saints are in a bit of a complicated one, and I don't know how fully correct this is, but I'm 94% sure that this is it. If New Orleans wins, my head is now spinning. If New Orleans win and the Packers lose, New Orleans gets the number 1 seed. I don't think Seattle's win or loss dictates that, but for Seattle, they need a few things to happen. It's complicated. You guys know how playoff scenarios go, and the Panthers are eliminated from playoff contention. Injuries here, a big bomb that dropped today. I guess, by the time I'm recording this, not by the time you're watching it, Alvin Kamara is out due to COVID, and that's fucking wild. His first test came back inconclusive. Second test, bam, positive. You're not playing. Wild. Wild. Because we just saw what Alvin Kamara did last week. And truthfully, this matchup is just as bad as the one that he had. Just as bad? Just as good? Just as good, rather, excuse me, as the one that he had last week on Christmas. I've banged about it all year long. The Panthers' run defense, you start your running backs against the Panthers, you start your running backs against the Lions, against the Raiders, and against the Packers. It's the four teams. It's the four teams that I've preached all year long that you need to start your guys against. So with that being said, Latavius Murray just becomes a locked-in guy in your lineup, especially for me. We saw what Latavius Murray actually did against Carolina earlier this season, and that was he had 11 carries, 47 yards. Did he get in the end zone? He did not get in the end zone, but I know Kamara got in the end zone. I believe Kamara had a touchdown and 80 total yards. I know Carolina gave about 23 points to the running back position in that game, so that math kind of checks out in my head. And then going over to the Panthers, Christian McCaffrey ruled out due to that quad injury. Just such a busted season for him. I don't expect you made your championship with Christian McCaffrey, but if you did, shout out to you. And then unfortunately, another blow for the Panthers. Mike Davis is also out due to an ankle injury. So Robbie, I think his name is Robbie Smith, the third string running back for the Panthers, is going to get the start here. What that means to me, it means nothing. I want to make sure I get his name correct. Yes, Rodney Smith. I said Robbie. Rodney Smith. I apologize, Mr. Smith. Start sits here. Let's just dive right in. Latavius Murray, Emmanuel Sanders, and Jared Cook. Here's what you need to understand here. With no Michael Thomas and no Alvin Kamara, I keep dropping my damn pencil. With no Michael Thomas, no Alvin Kamara, Drew Brees needs to throw the ball to somebody, right? It's not going to be Latavius Murray. I can tell you that right now. And we saw what Emmanuel Sanders did last week without Michael Thomas, and that was, I believe, turned in an 85-yard performance, if I am not mistaken. And then Jared Cook has slowly been coming around as well. He's a guy who I'm really excited about this week. Let me pull up Jared Cook's numbers. As of late, Jared Cook, over the course of the past 4 games, has been above 8 fantasy points in 3 out of 4. He's rolling. He had a great game versus Carolina the first time where he had 3 receptions for 32 yards and got into the end zone. And that's just one of the things that we like to see from tight ends, especially like this week. I'm looking for touchdowns. I'm looking for tight ends who are going to score touchdowns, and that's what I'm rolling with this week. I'm trying to find those guys who I think can get into the end zone, and Jared Cook is absolutely one of them because Drew Brees is down his top 2 targets, and that means that Jared Cook should see a plethora. And then also Jared Cook, I believe this stat is correct because I don't know why I would know this if it wasn't. Jared Cook leads the NFL over the course of the past 3 years in receptions over 50 yards from the tight end position. So big playability, touchdown ability as well. And Jared Cook is one of my favorite tight end plays on the week because of that. Emmanuel Sanders has a high floor due to the same reasons too. So just 2 guys that I like in this Saints passing game on the week versus Carolina. For Carolina, though, let's talk about the Panthers. Start your wide receivers here. DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, and Bobby Anderson. Again, I've been saying this a lot. It's so funny, now that I'm talking about this, right? Week 17 is the culmination of everything, and 16. Championship week is the culmination of everything that we have learned this season. So essentially, starting your best lineup really shouldn't be too difficult because we have 15 weeks of data to back everything up that we're saying here. What I love about the Carolina Panthers offense with these 3 wide receivers, they all have their own different play style, right? DJ Moore is a possession guy who's become more and more of that as the year has progressed, reestablishing himself as that player that he was last year. Robbie Anderson is the high yardage guy, just a guy who can make that deep vertical play. And then Curtis Samuel is just a Swiss Army knife of a player. They all have their own roles, and because of that, it all makes them startable. The Saints defense has been great, no 2 ways about it, but I still think you can start these guys with confidence this week. Let's shift over to the NFC North. the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears here. With a win or New Orleans Saints lost, Green Bay locks up the number 1 seed. And for the Bears, win and get in. Mitch Trubisky, my guy, unintentional. My Tar Heel brethren has led this Bears offense, this Bears team, to be honest, back to life, brought them back from the dead. Injuries here, nothing. We are good to go. Green Bay, you know how this works. Start everybody. The usual. They are up. They are active. They are in your lineup. Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones. I was going to say AJ Jones. No, I was thinking of AJ Dillon. Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams, and Robert Tonyan needs to be in your lineup. What you do with AJ Dillon, I wouldn't. I just feel like that's so risky because if he doesn't get the workload that we saw in the blizzard last week, I don't know what that leaves you. I'm concerned. I have concerns, and a Week 17 championship, like to me, if you need that ultimate swing for the fence play at running back, which I can't imagine that you do because of the amount of guys available on the waiver wire, that's the guy I would go to. Just because we've seen it bubbling, we've seen it brewing over the course of the past 2 weeks or so. And if he gets that opportunity again, he can get in the end zone. This is an offense that can move the ball left, right, and center. They score points at will, and that would be a guy who I would pivot to in absolute desperation mode. But I can't imagine you're in that situation if you're playing in a championship in Week 17. For Chicago, Green Light David Montgomery, his new nickname around here. I really like that nickname, actually. Boom. There we go. Green Light David Montgomery up active in your lineup. Allen Robinson in your lineup. And for another tight end sleeper, Jimmy Graham, just a guy who relies on touchdowns. Again, I'm looking for those tight ends who can get in the end zone. And we've seen it all year long where Chicago's game plan with Jimmy Graham, once they get inside the 5, is just post them up, jump ball, game, set, match, checkmate. And it's been pretty successful on this season. How many touchdowns does Jimmy Graham have? That's actually a really interesting question that I'm going to do some digging on. Jimmy Graham, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like, it's really impressive. The red zone threat that Jimmy Graham still is this late into his career. This is year 11 for him, if you are wondering. Anything else for this game? Not that I know of. Let's keep going. My eyes are now going crazy. Ooh. All right. It's late. I'm not going to tell you what time it is, but just know I'm grinding this out. 2020, the work doesn't stop. Or 2021, the work does. See, I don't even know what year it is now. Next game here. There we go. All right. Vegas and Denver. Both teams eliminated from playoff contentions. Injuries to note, none. Start sit. Josh Jacobs, Darren Waller, both the guys in your lineup, like they don't leave. We talked about this all year long. Nelson Aguilar, again, is the biggest dart throw at wide receiver for me, and you're banking on that big play. You're banking on the big play. You're banking on the touchdown, because if you don't got it, you have nothing. And if you get it, you have everything, right? It's one of those things. You're spinning the wheel, and hopefully you get lucky. I don't love it. I don't love it. But again, if you're down 20 and you need that big play, Aguilar might be the guy that you have to just take your medicine and start. For Denver, Melvin Gordon, only player that I have interest in starting. Again, start your running backs against the Las Vegas Raiders. My favorite game of the week. I'll say it. Second favorite game of the week. I'll go favorite game of the week. Tennessee Titans and the Houston Texans. For Tennessee, they clinched the AFC South with a win, and the Texans have been eliminated from playoff contention. No injuries to note for either side. And for both sides, both teams in this game, start everybody. Like, it's the formula that has worked all season long. It's proven, it works, and it's fun as fuck. Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, Jonnu Smith, Deshaun Watson, David Johnson, Brandon Cooks, Kiki QT, Chad Hansen, like, just start everybody here. Two bad defenses, two fun as fuck offenses. Just roll with it. Just roll with it. I'm thinking. The reason why I'm thinking right now is because it hurts. It hurts. I've talked about my love for the Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry stack all season long. It's fun. It's safe. You're guaranteed fantasy points. My issue with the stack, for me specifically this week, is I'm down 28. And what happens if this is a what happens if this is strictly a Derrick Henry game? And I get little from Ryan Tannehill, or vice versa. That's my only concern. That is my only concern for the stack for me personally this week, because I am down 28 and I can't have a position tank. I do want to note this though. I'll pull it up. Last time that these two teams faced off, these players went fucking ballistic. Derrick Henry in week 6 had 39 fantasy points. That was when he had the 40-yard rushing touchdown to cap off overtime. And Ryan Tannehill in that same game had 31. These players went off. The stack proved to be working. And we know how pitiful this Houston Texans secondary is. Roll with the stack. It's worked all season long. And I think that's the thing that's really eating me the most here, is the fact that in my championship, because I started Jalen Hurts last week, am I really going to be in a position where I love this stack all year long and I don't even get to utilize it in my fantasy championship? Like, to me, like, that is such a mental bummer. And I know I just talked about, there's this weird balance of being loyal to the guys who got you there and understanding the talent that they provide, but then also understanding when you have a better option. And I might have a better option this week. It's something that I'm going to be discussing in just a few moments when we switch over to our last game. But it's tough. It's tough. Regardless, though, you should probably start everybody. I just have options I need to weigh through. I love both these teams. I've talked about this at length. Deshaun Watson is absolutely matchup proof. Brandon Cooks is a certified stud at wide receiver when he's healthy and on the field. David Johnson's the most consistent running back, in my opinion, for fantasy this season. And then what Chad Hansen and Kiki QT have done in the absence of Will Fuller is nothing to scoff at. So I love everybody in this game, and this is the game that I think I'm going to have the most fun with this week. Let's stay, actually, in the AFC South, and let's roll with the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Indianapolis Colts. Playoff scenarios here. Jacksonville has been eliminated, and for the Colts, they need to win, and they also need a loss by the Ravens, Dolphins, or Browns in order to make the postseason. Injuries here. James Robinson has been ruled out with that ankle injury. That was announced way early in the week if you missed it, and as a result, I'm not starting anybody on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Injuries for the Colts, no one. Good to go. Good to roll there. So my start sits for the Colts include Phillip Rivers. For me, my favorite streaming option of the week. Fun fact. If I didn't have Jalen Hurts, and if Ryan Tannehill was not playing this week, this is the player I would play. It's Phillip Rivers. I've had this in my back pocket for weeks. Luckily, I didn't have to get to that point to where I'm picking up a player, where I'm picking up a quarterback to stream if I had a Patrick Mahomes or a Big Ben or maybe a Josh Allen or a Tom Brady if I'm fearful that they're not going to play a full 60 minutes. Phillip Rivers is the guy who I think you need to pick up if Jalen Hurts is not available. I only say that because of the rushing upside that Hurts provides. This matchup against a terrible Jacksonville defense, the weapons have come along nicely. For Phillip Rivers, he checks down to Nyheim Hines and Jonathan Taylor, who have both been productive on the ground and through the air. T.Y. Hilton has emerged from the dead. We've seen flashes from Michael Pittman. The tight ends have been involved, and Jacksonville is pitiful at defending that position. This could be a game where Phillip Rivers goes absolutely berserk and leads the Colts to a chance at the postseason. So Jonathan Taylor, Phillip Rivers, T.Y. Hilton, if you need that flyer. Again, starting T.Y. Hilton in 2021 now is not a fun thing to do, but the matchup provides that you can. And then are you looking at a Trey Burton or Mo Alley Cox or Jack Doyle in the red zone at the tight end position, I lean Trey Burton just seems to be the most consistent option for Phillip Rivers this season if you need to go deep at tight end. Up next, the game that hurts a ton of people in Week 17. I think this is the game with my most injuries, quote unquote. For playoffs, though, there are none. Chargers have been eliminated, and the Chiefs have locked up the number 1 seed in the AFC. So injuries, Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry are both out due to COVID for the Chargers. And for Kansas City, Mahomes, Reek, Kelsey, Clyde, Watkins are all out, all for a variety of different reasons. Mahomes is out due to rest. Kelsey's out due to rest. Tyreek's out due to the hamstring injury / rest. Clyde is out due to that ankle injury or whatever you want to call it, leg, knee, hip, whatever they want to label it. They change it every single week. And Sammy Watkins is out with the calf injury. Le'Veon Bell is questionable due to a knee injury, and Chad Henne is ultimately starting at quarterback. Start sits here for the Chargers. Herbert, Eckler, that's it. That's all I'm really going to roll with. I guess Mike Williams, right? Because I'm going to assume, because the Chiefs are also playing their second stringers, it looks like. So you're probably going to roll Mike Williams here, especially with him being the number 1 option here, and seeing him in that role, I think it's going to be really fun. We know the playmaking ability that he has, and if he gets those consistent targets, which he very well could, he could be in line for a big game here. But Herbert and Eckler, I just trust Herbert's ability. We've seen it throughout the course of the year, and yes, it has fallen off. Herbert can be a superstar in any given game, and he's shown the willingness to throw to literally anybody. And that makes him just a really intriguing quarterback to play all the way around, because it doesn't matter who's on the field. He's going to get guys involved, and he's going to take those deep shots to the end zone and be successful in doing so. And for the Chiefs, I'm not starting anybody. I won't do it. I don't know what this offense is going to look like, but I actually do. It's going to look like, I'm not saying it's going to look like the Jets or the Patriots is really doing a disservice to those teams, because those two teams are just utterly awful. But what's a bad middling offense that I don't particularly love? San Fran, that's what it looks like. It's gonna look like the bad version of San Francisco that we've seen this year, and I'm not excited for that really in the slightest. And with that being said, we can move on to our next game. The Seattle Seahawks are taking on the San Francisco 49ers, ironically enough, with a win and a New Orleans and Green Bay loss. I believe that's what it is. Seattle would then become the number 1 seed, which feels wildly implausible, but it's the case. And the 49ers have been eliminated from playoff contention. Injuries here, the Seahawks have none. And for San Fran, Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk are both out for this game, which makes start sits here really easy, to be honest. For Seattle, Russell Wilson, Chris Carson, DK Metcalf. You can't start Tyler Lockett here. I have no interest in doing so. He's let you down way too many times to even consider starting him in your championship. And then on the other side for San Fran, really simple. It's going to be Jeff Wilson, the running back of choice, or I guess the running back available for the 49ers, and George Kittle, who came back last week and was really productive in the action that he saw. Fine rolling those two out in your lineups this week. We got 2 more games left. And our second to last is going to be the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Los Angeles Rams. Playoff scenarios for the Cardinals, it's win and get in. And for the Rams, it is also win and get in, or a loss by the Chicago Bears. It's I feel like the Rams are kind of in the sweet spot where they can lose, and even if they lose, they still have the opportunity to get in, and I think they're one of the only teams who actually have that scenario available to them. Injuries here, Chase Edmonds is questionable with a hip injury, and for the Rams, and the reason why I say they're one of the few teams who are blessed to have that scenario is because the Rams got obliterated by injuries this week. Darrell Henderson placed on IR with that ankle injury. Jared Goff out with that broken thumb. Cooper Kupp out due to COVID. And Cam Akers is questionable with an ankle injury. I don't know if Cam Akers plays. And that's the reason why I've been playing keep away in my championship, picking up as many running backs as I can, trying to make sure that if Akers is out, my opponent is in shambles, trying to figure out who to start, who to sit, and what his options are. So start sits for this game: Kyler, Kenyon, and Hopkins. Don't leave your lineup. I've been saying this pretty much all season long. I'm going down with the Kyler Murray ship. I just love the rushing upside that he provides you on a week-to-week basis. Nuke is Nuke, and Kenyon Drake has been getting it done as of late. For the Rams, John Wolford is getting his first career start, and that might not sound exciting to you, but I talked about this with a friend earlier this week, and he's in a 2-quarterback league, and I'm actually going to read you my text that I sent to him. I said, let's see. Alright. So he has Tom Brady and Lamar Jackson as his 2 quarterbacks in the Superflex Championship. And I told him, I said, okay, I have the craziest thing I will ever tell you. If Tom does not play, I think you can start John Wolford of the Rams versus Arizona. Hear me out. Seriously, every year we have multiple backup quarterbacks who come in and light it up because quarterback play in fantasy is largely dictated by matchup. Arizona is bleeding points defensively right now. They just put Kupp on the COVID list, so who knows if he'll play. But if he does, Wolford has the weapons to succeed. Unfortunately, it looks like he's not going to play. Like I said, he's still on the COVID list, and I wouldn't expect him to play coming off of that, not practicing the whole week. But this does really just bring me to my point, actually, about Robert Woods, who I think you can still start with some level of confidence in your lineup. Robert Woods is going to be John Wolford's best friend in this game again against an Arizona Cardinals defense who's bleeding points in the secondary. I like Robert Woods a lot here if you have to. Again, it all depends upon roster construction, what you need, what your scenario is, and just what you believe in Robert Woods this week. I like the matchup. The reason why I'm not playing Robert Woods is because I have Justin Jefferson and Allen Robinson. So again, I'm in the position where I don't have to. But if I was in a position where I had to play Robert Woods, totally fine with it. This matchup is favorable for him, and I think Wolford peppers him with targets. All right. And then also, I want to point out Malcolm Brown. Yo, if Akers doesn't play and they're down Henderson already, Malcolm Brown is a guy, another player who you should add and pick up and could start in a pinch if you had to. The matchup's fine. Like, let's pull this up. I'm very interested here. Because I think the Rams are 21st in points given up to running backs. Is that number correct? They're 22nd. They're 22nd, so this is a good matchup. I mean, they just got obliterated by the Niners last week, if you missed that. And against the Rams in Week 13, they were exposed. There have been games where the Cardinals have been ran through. So this could be one of them. Malcolm Brown's a guy who's just always been this consistent option when he has gotten his time to shine, so that gives you some level of confidence there. Like him more as a flex player or a running back 2 than a running back 1. But again, desperate times, desperate measures with the list of players who I just rattled off over the course of the past hour who are not playing. I understand the position that some of you guys are in. You could do a lot worse than Malcolm Brown. I'll leave it at that. And then our final game, the Washington football team taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, and that actually is backwards. My bad. Gotta love the final the final weekly preview of the year having a blunder at the end. Look, we all can't be perfect. So it's actually the inverse. Washington is taking on Philly in Philly here, and scenarios, playoffs, Washington, win and get in, win, have a home playoff game, win, and become NFC East champions. The Eagles were eliminated last week with their loss. Injuries. Antonio Gibson did not practice all week, questionable due to that turf toe injury. I expect him to play. Terry McLaurin, questionable with that high ankle sprain. I don't think he goes. Both did not practice all week long, and Alex Smith practiced in a limited capacity this week, questionable with that calf. I was looking at ankle and I had calf in my head. Questionable with that calf injury, excuse me. And for the Eagles, the most surprising thing here, Miles Sanders is out. I don't believe there was an injury related to it. I think they just kind of like threw one on the depth chart, just because you kind of have to. So Miles Sanders is not playing in this game, and Dallas Goedert is also out with a calf injury as well. So that brings us to some start sits here, and I actually really want to talk about something first before we even go any further. Sunday night, Week 17, is my favorite game of the year. If you guys recall, one of my very first videos, I believe in week 3, I talked about how I approach Monday night, and the mindset behind it is I want to be the team with the last player standing. And this being the last game is really appealing to me. This is a game where the Eagles offense has moved, right? It's gotten on a roll since Jalen Hurts took over. This is the game where Washington needs to win and get in, so you know they're going to play hard as hell. And for this to be the Sunday night game, also the Eagles had the opportunity to play spoiler for Washington and their NFC East championship hopes. This is a game that could have a decent amount of fantasy implications to it. When you look at Jalen Hurts and you look at a Zach Ertz, who is now the guy with Dallas Goedert out. I don't love Zach Ertz, but you guys get the point that I'm saying here. Deshaun Jackson has big bomb potential. Jalen Reagor, Alshon Jeffrey, Boston Scott now with Miles Sanders going down. Washington, Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick, Terry McLaurin, Alex Smith, Logan Thomas. There are just a lot of players here who you could start. And again, I started the Seahawks defense. I started Deebo Samuel and Raheem Mostert last year, week 17, because of this same reason. I want to be the team with the last options remaining because I know what I need in order to win at that point. I know I need 13 points from those 3 players combined, and I'll be victorious, and I'll be able to bring home another fantasy football championship. So knowing and understanding the fantasy value in this game is really important to me. And I'm going to talk about this in another video that's going to go up later today. I may have blew my opportunity to really exploit this game for that reason. So start sets here. Antonio Gibson, if he's active, he should be. I expect him to. He played last week and was fine. Antonio Gibson should be in your lineup. They're also trying to win, and he is their best running back. So Gibson should be in your lineup. Terry McLaurin, I don't think he plays. I get they're hopeful, but that's a high ankle sprain, man. He's trying to come back after, 2 weeks or so? No way. I don't believe it. I'll believe it when I see it. And then Logan Thomas, if Terry McLaurin does not play, even if he does, Logan Thomas, the way that Washington has really utilized their offense, it's been around the running back and the tight end as of late. Logan Thomas is seeing a shit ton of targets. If Terry McLaurin does not play, he is the number 1 pass catcher on this team, and he is in line for a big, big week on Sunday night. For Philly, Jalen Hurts, I think you just roll with it, even without Miles Sanders. Jalen Hurts has been getting it done. You're looking at 300-yard passing games, multi-TD games, rushing ability. Jalen Hurts can play spoiler here to Washington. I'm really excited about him here. Boston Scott with no Miles Sanders. We'll see what happens with Jordan Howard if they try and get him involved. But I do like Boston Scott potentially here. I wouldn't rely on it. If I had to list the running backs who have just magically appeared on the waiver wire for you this week, potentially, I would go Latavius Murray 1, Alexander Mattison 2, and then Boston Scott. Boston Scott is my 3rd of those 3. So I'd look for those 2 guys first, and then if not, if you got to pivot to Boston Scott, do what you got to do. But that really is just for spot starts if you need a guy. And then wide receivers and tight ends here. Not excited about starting Zach Ertz, to be honest. I just don't know how good he is now at this point. Still, just finding his way back this season. Jalen Reagor hasn't really done anything. Deshaun Jackson had the one big play. Alshon Jeffrey's gotten in the end zone once. Jalen Hurts still just trying to, figure out the NFL game, even though he's excelled at it so far. It's one of those things where I know the weapons boost the floor of Jalen Hurts, but I don't know if I can pick one out of the lineup. It's kind of very similar to what I've been saying about what's the really good example here. It's kind of one of the things I've been saying about Teddy Bridgewater, honestly. When you look at Teddy Bridgewater, when you look at Deshaun Watson, when you look at Uh, When you look at the Panthers, yeah, Bridgewater, like, even Brady to a degree. Like, the weapons boost the floors of the quarterbacks, but the quarterbacks don't really boost the floors of the wide receivers. So it's one of those things where it's it helps the quarterbacks more than the offensive weapons itself. And with that, I think that's it. I truly think that is it. We done it. We got through all 17 weeks. If you are playing for a championship, best of luck to you. I'm One of the things that really drove me this season, and honestly, I didn't think this would be the case, but doing this every single week really did instill this notion that I need to have this next to me for every single video. And I have the opportunity to make that a reality this week on Sunday, down 28. And the thing about it is, I'm really confident. I'm really confident. I know what my team can do. I'll probably dive into some of the stats in the video that I'm going to upload later tonight. So be sure to subscribe for that as to why I'm so confident. But just know that anything that can happen the week before can happen this week. And truthfully, you know what your team is capable of doing. You know what it took to get to this point. And with that being said, why should you feel less confident this week than you have in any of the other weeks? Again, we have the most data available to us to make the most informed and best decision for our lineups. And I think there's a lot to be said just in that alone, right? We know what we're doing here. We worked all season for this moment, and god damn it, we aren't going to stop until we win another one of these things behind me. So thank you so much for watching this week and any of the previous weeks. Hopefully I was able to help you in some way during the course of this fantasy season. Be sure to hit that like button down below to show your support for this video. Subscribe, hit that bell, follow me on all social media platforms, and as always, this video is brought to you by Thrive Fantasy. Use my promo code VULTURE. Minimum $20 deposit, maximum $50. They're going to match your first deposit for you. Come prop up on Thrive Fantasy this season. I'm going to get up out of here. This video is way longer than I expected it to be. It is now 2:06 a.m. And God bless you. God bless 2021. And let's start the new year off with a goddamn fantasy football championship, shall we?